Welcome to the InfoWars Nightly News. It is Friday, May 20th, 2016, and I'm Lee Ann McAdoo. Here's what's coming up tonight.
Tonight.
A lot of my fantasies actually revolve around little girls who are in some way more powerful than I am. Eventually, my attraction became, overwhelming to the point I had to go relieve myself in the bathroom.
Salon doubles down on romanticizing pedophilia. After that, a Mao survivor has a dire warning for America. And how Bernie supporters are helping Trump inch towards the presidency. That's next.
Where you at? Why you... Give me the job right now. Give me the job right now. What job?
I have a used furniture company. I create furniture refinishing. I have movers. I have assistant movers. I have people that do work for me.
But what are movers going to do for us? So for him to come, why do I want to move furniture around?
I began to get into iodine a few years ago because it was helping me and my family so much get healthy and detoxify. I believe our research is conclusive. This is the best iodine out there. And I know this for a fact. Nobody else has got iodine based on these pure crystals, ladies and gentlemen. For a limited time, experience the ancient power of Survival Shield X2. I believe our research is conclusive. This is the best iodine out there. Take advantage of this at InfoWarsLife.com.
Well, if any of you Second Amendment enthusiasts were wondering where Trump stands on the gun issue, the NRA made it pretty clear today after they endorsed Donald Trump for president. This was Chris Cox, the executive director of the NRA's Institute for Legislative Action. He made this endorsement today saying, now is the time to unite. If your preferred candidate dropped out of the race, it's time to get over it. And Donald Trump came out and said, you know what, the Second Amendment is under a threat like never before. And he called crooked Hillary Clinton the most anti-gun candidate ever to run for office. And as he said before, she wants to abolish the Second Amendment and take your guns away, which she has made incredibly clear time and time again. So you can bet that it is never Hillary. Now, Trump has also come out in true Trumpian fashion, responding to Clinton's claims that he is not qualified to be president. So he said, the fact that Hillary thinks the temporary Muslim ban, which she calls the Muslim ban, promotes terrorism, proves Bernie Sanders was correct when he said that she is not qualified to be president. You can look at the carnage all over the world, including the World Trade Center, San Bernardino, Paris, the USS Cole, Brussels, and an unlimited number of other places. She and our totally ignorant president won't even use the term radical Islamic terrorism. And by the way, ask Hillary who blew up the plane last night. Another terrible but preventable tragedy. And so here again, this is what people love about Trump. He's not afraid to speak out, even though everyone's going to say, oh, he hates Muslims and he's not being politically correct. We get it. You're not allowed to speak out. Hashtag not all Muslims. And this is actually another astounding claim coming from the Eagles of Death metal singer, who, of course, was at the Bataclan when it was attacked there in Paris. He is saying in a new interview that he actually saw with his own eyes in real time Muslims celebrating in the street during the attack. So he says as he stepped out of the building, he saw them in the streets dancing, celebrating during the attack. He says there must have been some coordination. How did they know what was going on? He reminds everyone that a day after at the stadium, Muslims actually booed the moment of silence, and we barely heard about that in the press. And he also reiterated his claims that the Muslim security guards who were working at the Bataclan Theater on the night of the attack were complicit in the massacre. He points out how during the shooting, he went outside and the backstage door was propped open. How did that happen? And he also talks about 2 girls that he believes were involved. He said that they were at the venue, then they vanished before the shooting. They were in traditional Muslim garb. And of course, they got caught a few days later. And all of this is really interesting because he was forced to apologize when he talked about his experience that night a few months ago. He was forced to apologize and say, I was just having PTSD. How could I have known or made those claims? But now he's doubling down and saying, this is what I experienced that night. This is exactly what I saw. And don't gaslight me, bro. Well, now French festivals have canceled the Eagles of Death Metal over the remarks that he has made, because you're not allowed, you can't, facts over feelings that's not the name of the game today. It's all about feelings over facts. And so they don't care about what your experience was. If you were actually there, actually present, actually on stage, could have possibly lost your life. And if you had you're a musician and you set up before the show and you're having these experiences and you're witnessing all of this stuff that just doesn't add up, doesn't make sense, but you're not allowed to speak out. And in fact, everyone needs to just use the hashtag not all Muslims. But you know what? Here's a new hashtag for you. It's only Muslims that are blowing themselves up. Since 9/11, they're the only ones that are going out strapping suicide vests to themselves or bombs to planes and blowing them up. So it's time for people to step back from the PC and stop correcting everybody's language and start getting with the facts and the reality that this is what is absolutely going on. And it's this policing of the English language that we really need to start talking about, because it's getting scary. People are truly trying to rewrite words and rewrite science. And it's this Orwellian control people are finally starting to realize and fight back. That includes a Republican Senator, Tom Cotton, who is now speaking out against this Orwellian control over words. And he's talking about the response the Obama administration has had to telling businesses that they can't call criminals felons, that now they have to call them justice-involved individuals. This is the DOJ. They've actually announced they're not going to call criminals felons anymore because it's too hard on them emotionally. So Tom Cotton speaks out. He mocks their decision, calling it a crime against the English language. And he said, it reflects the dangerous mindset that criminals are victims, that the justice system somehow happened to them. They didn't commit a crime. They became involved in the justice system. And he added again, criminals are not victims. Criminals are criminals. Victims are victims. Somebody better call the thought police, because I'm getting triggered there by those facts. Now, something else that, I feel we are in an upside down world, Friday the 13th, backwards day. The Charlotte Observer actually put out an editorial making the case that girls need to overcome their discomfort of seeing male genitals in the locker room. They are assuming that the bathroom bill is going to eventually be repealed or declared illegal. And so they're saying that they need to get over this feeling of discomfort at the sight of male genitalia when transgender facilities are allowed in North Carolina. And the Washington Times reports that this is what the Obama administration nudged the rest of the country toward Friday. Yes, the thought of male genitalia in girls' locker rooms and vice versa might be distressing to some, but the battle for equality has always been in part about overcoming discomfort, with blacks sharing facilities, with gays sharing marriage, and then realizing it was not nearly so awful as some people imagined. So the fact that they're saying that it was nudged by the Obama administration is very hilarious, considering they're now going to be arresting people and punishing businesses and things like that. It's being forced down people's throats, not to mention that it has nothing to do with race relations or even gay marriage, because black people don't choose the color of their skin. Gay people do not choose to be gay, where we've already now figured the science is settled on all of this. But now here again, this is one thing that apparently scientists got wrong about two genders. But this is the monumental difference that they want people to make. And they also say in this article that the attacks that girls might suffer of a man entering the bathroom and saying, oh, you know, I need to be in here, the attacks will be rare. So it's okay. This is totally okay. And another thing that they're trying to massage into our brains that it's okay is pedophilia. For whatever reason, Salon has once again pulled out their resident pedophile to make the claim that pedophilia is okay. It's an alternative sexual orientation. And this is a video now that's been posted on Salon's Facebook page. This is Todd Nickerson. Now, of course, he first came to prominence when he was explaining how lusting after children was merely an alternative sexual orientation and that people should be understanding and supportive. Well, now he's come out and he's in this new video explaining how he fell in love with a 5-year-old girl that he was babysitting who was advanced for her age. And what does Salon do? As he's explaining how he's having fantasies of this 5-year-old girl and to the point where he had to go excuse himself, relieve himself in the bathroom. Disgusting. They show this romanticized, soft lighting picture of a little girl dancing and twirling around so that you and I can understand what the eyes of a pedophile, how they're viewing your little 5-year-old girl. I mean, this is absolutely infuriating that they're trying to normalize this and give this guy a platform by, you know, romanticizing this image of a little girl who this guy says, you know, he had to go and take care of himself in the bathroom because he's so freaking deranged. And they're trying to peddle this out as, you know, people just need to be more accepting. But Nickerson has previously admitted in the past that he would engage in sexual activity with a child that he loved if she initiated it. Okay, and this is the same guy that claimed that 5-year-old girl that he was babysitting once came onto him. So this guy is clearly totally freaking sick and delusional. But they want you to just be accepting of it, be loving. It's an alternative sexual orientation. Hey, if you're opening up to that, you know, you should be open up to this too. And you better be open to it because soon it's going to be forced down your throat, just like the rest of these laws. And again, we are totally in Wally World and completely screwed. And if you don't believe me, you know, or this or that, take a look at this video. There is an angry mob, once again, surrounding a Trump supporter. Thank goodness most of these kids are not old enough to vote right now, but you can see how they're totally programmed. And here, this girl is arguing with this Trump supporter, explaining what is Donald Trump going to do to create jobs? And of course, the woman does explain exactly how tariffs work, and she's not satisfied with that. Take a look.
InfoWars! Love you guys!
Wait, so Donald Trump promised you jobs.
With what?
With jobs? You said if he becomes president, we'll have more jobs.
He's going to bring jobs back from other countries because they pay them nothing. It's slave.
No. Before you elaborate on the jobs, before you elaborate on your jobs, how is he going to do it?
He's going to put a tariff on them.
He is telling you his plan, but do you know, is he able to go through with his plan?
Yeah, it is a fact that tariffs do work.
Congress is going to agree.
You know, this country,
Congress is going to agree.
Before the income tax, this country, where there were no personal income taxes, there were only tariffs. And they paid, 1913, they did two things. They created the Federal Reserve and they created the personal income tax. So before that, tariffs have always run this country. Now, you put 35% taxes on everything coming in from Mexico, and guess what? Companies are going to bring their jobs back here rather than pay a 35% tariff.
Well, what's going to happen to the other? Your teachers
Well, that's their problem.
But if we're giving them the jobs, what are they going to do?
You know what? What the Mexican people have to do is do exactly what we did. Rise up and have a race of revolution.
But it ain't trying. You think they're sitting there with the chihuahuas? Like, what the fuck do you think they're doing?
They disarmed the Mexicans just like they disarmed the French. They disarmed the English, and the minute they disarm us, it's over for us.
How do you get English, French, and fucking?
How are we gonna rise if he becomes president? Because he's really doing
How is Donald Trump gonna help me? How is he gonna help me?
Trump is not wasting money on that. The money I paid wait a second. No, it's not. I paid $200 for a ticket.
Why would you pay $200?
Everybody in there paid $200 a ticket. You know where the money's going to pay off Chris Christie's debt.
Why can't Chris Christie pay off his own debt?
And this is where it gets a little bit frustrating because we're always saying, engage these people, let them speak how they feel, and then, bring them some facts and challenge their ideas a little bit. But here, this woman is actually bringing facts, explaining how tariffs work, explaining how Trump would bring jobs back to this country. That doesn't satisfy this person who clearly just wants to argue for the sake of arguing. Well, this week marked the 50th anniversary of China's Cultural Revolution. It was a chaotic period of purging and punishment. It began May 16th, 1966, and it lasted in different phases until the Communist Party chairman Mao died 10 years later. Now, this was led in part by Mao's Red Guards. They were a paramilitary social movement of up to 10 million young people. These are middle schoolers and high schoolers who were torturing and killing their society's leaders. Many of them informed on their own parents as well as family members who they alleged were having counter-revolutionary thoughts and actions, even if they didn't really know what those terms meant. They destroyed ancient works of art, burned books, and roamed around the country like stormtroopers. They were enforcing their ideology in very brutish ways in the name of revolution. Sort of sounds familiar. We're seeing a lot of that happening in the country today. Now, hundreds of thousands of people died, possibly up to 1.5 million people. In fact, 36 million more were persecuted. Now, my guest today is Lily Tang Williams. She is a libertarian candidate running for Senate, and she grew up under the Cultural Revolution, under Mao's regime. Lily, thank you so much for joining us today, and of course for speaking out against what you experienced there. I wanted to get your point of view on something that happened yesterday. Google, they always do this doodle, and they actually honored an activist who admired Mao, Marx, and Osama bin Laden. Now, she's a radical, of course. She did a lot of great things, but this is a woman who actively spoke out against these people who really wanted to destroy Western society. What do you think about that?
I wish I had the opportunity to go face with people personally to tell them what my life was like during the Cultural Revolution. Because, what they say, what they do today is just very similar to what happened to us. And really, we don't want to go there. It's a total nightmare. It's a total tyranny. Everybody was slaves except a few on the top. And I wish I could have the opportunity to actually face her off.
Yeah. Well, that's something that we are trying to point out a lot of times is that these young people don't realize they're going to be used. And then once their dirty work is done, they're going to be spit out just like the machine. Now, Lily, we're going to be right back with you because I want to find out just exactly what it was like living under Mao and how that sort of parallels with what's going on today. We'll be right back.
There's a very important question that needs to be answered. Will humanity survive? And to look at that threat, we have to ask another question. What is the number one obstacle to human beings and our species surviving and becoming a type 1 civilization that isn't just dependent on this planet? You could say that it's changes in the heavens, suns going supernova, tectonic earthquake and volcano events, nuclear weapons, genetic engineering. But if you look at the race, the acceleration of technological development, I think the biggest threat overall is humanity not pacing ourselves and merging with artificial intelligence. So they're trying to end humanity as if it's a good thing and create this new species. Talk about mad scientist. And there have been several new articles on this just the last few weeks. DARPA is testing implantable chips in soldiers' brains is one of them. Another just came out in mid-April. Rich Americans seeks black market brain implants in bid to plug into artificial intelligence matrix. And they're going to go through the dangerous surgeries of being hooked up, not just with a few wires, but with thousands of connections total, to the brain, to an AI computer to try to merge consciousness. My father, a physician, recently went back to continuing education, part of keeping his medical license, and he brought me back some of the literature they gave them. This is from the state medical boards right here in Texas, that soon you'll have to have a DNA chip to get a prescription. Not just that chips are going to be on the pills and medicines themselves, but now you're going to have to give your blood, basically every time, a tiny prick, into a DNA chip database that tracks everything going on in your body as well as your genes. In this short report, we're only scratching the surface. And the big issue here is things they denied 20, 30 years ago that were going on, they're now admitting today. What are they doing that we don't know about? We need to have a debate about our species. We need to understand that the global elite have decided we're obsolete and are moving towards a robotic future where there's no place for humanity, as Bill Joy wrote over 15 years ago for Wired Magazine in his article, Why the Future Doesn't Need Us. And the numbers are in. Screen time, all the television, all the prescription drugs. This modern culture is killing us. Our IQs are dropping. People are becoming more and more ignorant. Society is unraveling and falling apart. So we know that the fruits of this high-tech poison tree are literally killing us. The answer is getting back to healthy living, gardening, spending time with our families, less screen time, and also using compounds that Mother Nature has produced that are known to boost our natural abilities. Humans have built an incredible world. We can change our environment. We do have that magic spark. But the elite think we're ugly and bad and have decided it's time that humans be thrown on the ash heap of history. We have taken some of the compounds that Mother Nature has produced and gotten the cleanest, purest sources of it and put it together in BrainForce, one of the most highly reviewed nootropic brain boosters on the market today that has an incredibly affordable price. Check out BrainForce today and other game-changing compounds like X2 Survival Shield at InfoWarsLife.com. Again, that's InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139.
Lily, thank you so much for joining us once again today. Now, you grew up during the Cultural Revolution. Your uncles were actually taken to the forest for re-education. And I just really admire you for speaking out about this. Obviously, you say there on your website that you hate to see the country you love becoming more like the country that you left. Explain to people what this was like living during this time.
Well, I share my uncle's story and trying to warn the college students today on campuses wanting to silence other people for their freedom of speech. You know, my uncle's generation was very sad. They were used by Chairman Mao to purchase political enemies during the Cultural Revolution. And once Mao used them and they become violent in the cities and schools were shutting down, and he said, time to go to countryside to be re-educated by peasants. And the policy is that you can only keep the youngest one in the family to stay home. So my granddad lost 3 sons just like overnight. They all had to go to countryside. And that was like 10 years of suffering. So my uncle was 17. By the time he came home, he was 27. No high school diploma. Health was ruined. When they tried to come home, they were silenced too by the government. So they basically suffered the consequences of their own actions earlier years when they were young and naive and trusted the big government. And how did they come back during that time? They had to threat the government to say, let us come back to the cities now. We have suffered enough. or we are going to kill ourselves on the railway tracks. They were planning a massive suicide, and with posters and blood, on those posters on the walls to say, let us come home or all will kill ourselves. That's how they got the state government's attention in Sichuan and across other countries in the States too. And so they eventually let them come home, but their parents had to retire earlier to basically give their jobs to their children. And that's how my 3 uncles eventually all come back. But it just, that's long years suffering. Think about 10, 12 years.
Right. And so what do you think when you watch videos now? You see a lot of these young people out protesting Trump rallies and things like that, and they all seem to be parroting these same phrases that they're obviously learning in school. Everyone says the same thing, but whenever you ask them to explain themselves just a little bit, they have no idea what they even mean when they're saying racist, homophobic, xenophobic, socialism, communism, it's so great, down with America and capitalism. They can't expand on those ideas, yet they are fighting voraciously for them. So does that kind of ring any bells with what happened in the past?
Well, of course, all this sense offended me, made me feel really worried for our country. I saw a college student on campus of University of Puerto Rico last fall wearing a Mao's T-shirt. I said, why are you wearing his T-shirt? He said, Mao is cool. I said, Mao is cool. I said, I'm Chinese immigrant. I grew up under Mao's regime, and he is a mass murderer. And 50 to 80 millions of Chinese were killed. I mean, some were dying of massive starvation, some were murdered. I said, why do you adore somebody who's a mass murderer? It's like those kids, they just don't know what happened in history. And I don't blame them because our government schools don't teach our kids real history. There are folks on other things that are doomed to be important leftist agendas, but our kids are not to be told to be true Americans who really treasure our constitutional rights and individual liberty. So I said, we have freedom of speech. Why do you want to silence your professors and other people on your campuses? Because you call them racist or whatever, but they're saying, though, someday that might happen to you. So I tell them about the Cultural Revolution, Red Guard sad stories. They were silenced, but then they were silencing other people under Mao's, so-called revolutionary campaign and criticize all their professors, all the intellectuals, and make them to wear pine cards every day to denounce them publicly. But then when they wanted to tell the truth about their sufferings in the countryside, in the mountains, and they were silenced. Some were sent to educational camp because they don't want to hear the truth from them. So my lesson to the college students today is that learn the history. Don't repeat it. I do not want to say cultural revolution on our college campuses today. The freedom of speech is precisely because you might not like or approve other people's speeches, but they have a right to do so. You don't have to like it, you don't have to prove it, but then when someday you have to say something other people don't like, and then you have right to say so. So we have to defend each other's rights to true freedom of speech. Otherwise, this country would go down path of the communist China.
Right. And Lily, now we know like the Red Guards that they destroyed works of art, they burned books, got rid of the intellectuals that, needed to be re-educated. So let's look at today how we're seeing them wanting to tear down statues because they're racist, or demanding that their professors be fired, or the deans of the schools have to excuse themselves because they are considered racist, or they're not bowing down to the pressures of these students who are really saying that their feelings matter over anything else. And the only way that you can protect their feelings is by not disagreeing with them and not having counter-revolutionary thoughts.
Well, I think our college students are being really naive. They have a tendency to trust, big, powerful government. And they have a tendency to believe the leftist radical agendas, everything's racist. They're also extremely sensitive without rational thinking. How about the people's rights, the property rights? You can just tear down any statues that offend you. or you can just criticize other organizations and business who don't do the things you like.
Right, but they're also erasing a very important part of history. Yes, I know that it might cause you to be a little bit uncomfortable if you see statues up of people who may have owned slaves at one time, but they also did some really great things for this country as well. So why not use that as something to remind people of where they came from, what their history was all about, rather than completely destroying it? Because if you have no idea of where you came from, then you have no idea of where you're going and where you're headed, and you can be easily controlled and corralled.
Right, I agree. During Cultural Revolution, actually, race guards also destroyed churches and temples. And I was raised as a Buddhist. I remember we could not go to our temples, even pray as a Buddhist and ask for blessings anymore, because all those were politically incorrect, and they want you to be only loyal to the Chairman Mao, to communism, to the Communist Party. So they shut down all the temples. Even Confucius temples were shutting down. And my grandma's like an old traditional, like a sewing machine was confiscated because the race guard said, you got to contribute to the country's great steel production campaign. And why do you keep this for yourself? You're so selfish. You need to contribute to the country. My grandma had to let her sewing machine to go. That was the only thing valuable in her apartment. And she was so afraid that raid guards were going to find out about her past. When she was the second wife of a mountain outlaw group, she remarried to my step-granddad later to kind of protect herself too. So she said, okay, you can take this, and she had to give that up. Even though I knew how much she really treasured that, she used that to make clothes for us. So, the young people today got to really learn about the individual rights instead of only focus on collectivism, public goods. Those are all communist, socialist jargons.
Lily, again, thank you so much for speaking out. Now, you are running for U.S. Senate. You say you were a slave once before, and you're not going to be one again. Tell people how they can support you and your run for Senate.
Well, this is a grassroots campaign. I need you to follow me, support me, donate on my website, lilyforliberty.com. I have a Facebook page, Lily for Liberty, and Twitter also, Lily for Liberty. And follow me and join my campaign for our freedom, for limited government. By telling my story, I'm really telling you guys that, I really fear for big, unlimited government. Our country is going down the wrong direction. So come to join me and support me. And I need your help and tell other people about my stories. I don't want to see this country I love really becoming China ever again.
Thank you, Lily.
Thank you.
A lot of people ask me, what is the most important area of InfoWars that runs the whole operation that is having such a big effect against the globalists? And I've said it over and over again, it is you, the listeners and the viewers, that send us the intel, the news tips, that support the broadcast, that spread the word. You are 90% of the operation or more. You don't stand beside us, you stand at the heart of InfoWars. When I talk about the people at InfoWars, from customer service, the shipping department, being just as important as our anchors, our researchers, our investigative journalists, and myself, it's absolutely true. Without this team that we've built over the last 20 plus years, we wouldn't be able to do any of what we've been doing. And that's what's so exciting, because we finally built up to a point where we now have the launch pad. Introducing AutoShip for InfoWars.